Hello and welcome to another edition of the Faith and Real Life podcast. I am Greg Wasinski, joined by my co-host, Mrs. Millie Prebel. Millie, I missed you.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
This has been a crazy year.
Yeah.
I've learned a few things about you. I mean, I knew that you were an incredible vegan chef. I know that you're an incredible learner. And most recently, you are an amazing packer.
Yes.
So I am in the midst of a family move. Our family is moving to a new house, and we needed some extra help. And so you call all those friends that really will begin to ignore your caller ID pretty soon if you're calling them too much. But Millie was one of those people and was an incredible packer. And but hey, that's what we do for family, right?
Yeah. I have packed a lot of people, myself included, and it's wonderful to share something that you're good at. And I don't know, maybe call me crazy. I enjoy packing. I don't know what it is about it.
Well, I have this fear,
a sense of accomplishment about it, or something.
Well, I have this fear that like when people are going to show up on moving day, that I've been on moves where people are like carrying out like notebooks and stuff. And so I want to make sure that every box is packed so that when people come, they're like, oh, this is much easier than I thought. And so that's kind of my fear.
Well, and your wife was quite organized in her planning to help us so that we could be productive packers.
We've been in our house 20 years.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of things that we've thrown away and given away. But I got to say that it's like the gremlins. You drop water on this stuff and it just grows. There's like more and more stuff. You're like, that wasn't even there in the morning. What did it do? Grow overnight? But yeah, so we're in the midst of a move, and families are always ever changing. And so that's what we're going to talk here about on episode number 206. We're going to talk about faith in the family because our faith is the one thing, Millie, that can always be a constant. Our faith is the ability to share with our family that God's presence is all around us in everything that we do. So how are we taking the initiative to share it at the dinner table? Or how are we taking the initiative that just in that quiet moment of trying to explain that life is not as easy as some of us think, we're trying to explain that maybe to our children, that we can just talk about our knowledge of some of the faith type stories or real life stories of faith that have inspired us to move on. And so what do you, let's just talk about the importance. What do you see as one of the most important things that people need to be doing when it comes to faith and family time?
I think, first of all, we need to wear our faith on our sleeves.
Yeah.
Don't hide the rosaries in the bedroom and the crosses in the bath. I mean, let your family especially and anyone that enters your home see you're a faith family.
Yeah.
Have crosses and, whatever. I mean, certainly not, anything that's, a display. But if you naturally would have things, I loved like when your wife talked the other day on Cranberry in Conversation about having a prayer corner.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to have a special place dedicated to that sort of thing in your home. And I often, sometimes this made me think of like when it's like, well, if Jesus was coming for dinner, would you have to put stuff away? So really that, our homes should be a place that we display our faith values within our children, within our marriages, and within our surroundings.
Well, I got to say, this was a big dilemma for us when we put our house up for sale, because the realtors tell you to take down everything so that somebody can envision their home.
Right.
And I struggled because our faith is such an important part of our life, and I'm still living there.
Right.
I'm not going to take down all my stuff to please someone else. So I left it up.
Yeah.
And do you know that part of the reason that the people that bought our house bought it was because they felt God's presence there, and they knew that it was loved by what they saw in the statues and the crosses and even our Pieta statue that is in our rock art. And so, what are we going to do? Like, if somebody doesn't want to buy your home because you have too much religious stuff, that's not your problem. That's their problem.
Right. It's funny you say that because when we were looking for a condo after we got married, we ended up going to this one. It was very minimal because the person that owned it had passed away, and then her nephew was living there, and there was very bare, except for his tarantula, which is a whole other story. But but they ended up, the interesting thing, of course, we ended up purchasing the condo, and the really cool, amazing thing was when we got the keys, every single one of them had a religious medal, little heart that said Jesus
Wow.
loves me, and I was like, well, this was the right purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. Too funny. And not religious items, but in our new home, one of the things that was right in the laundry room were bees. And not live bees, not dead bees on the windowsill, but pictures of bees. And
I was going to say they've got exterminators for that, Greg.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know about that one too. But no, it was just really interesting that we use this symbolism as a reminder of so many things in the world. Like at this point of the Easter season when we're recording this, it's about signs and it's about what people want, and our family, and whether we know it or not, is dying for signs that what we tell them to believe is real.
Right, right.
And so we have to help them along and to not hide that. And I would piggyback on what you said about the symbols of family and the symbols of faith, really. But I would add that symbol of family in talking about traditions of them understanding our responsibility to our elders and to extended family, and that at the end of the day, our family is supposed to be one single unit that is connected by blood, even though some of us are a little bit crazy when it comes to getting together. But I think in a lot of families that have this foundation, no matter what hits the fan, you can always rely on your family to catch you when you're at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to remember family's our first science lab. You know,
Yeah.
it's where we do all of our experimentation. It's where we learn relationships. It's where we try out, our jokes or our ideas or, different steps of faith that we may take. And it should always be that safe haven where, I might not agree with you, but I'm going to have your back and I'm going to love you.
Right. I know. I think that that's true. This is a good transition. The Catechism of the Catholic Church. I wanted to read this one. This is paragraph number 2207. So in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it says this. It says that the family is the original cell of social life. So just what you're saying. It is the natural society in which husband and wife are called to give themselves in love and the gift of life, authority, stability, and a life of relationship within the family constitutes the foundations for freedom, security, and fraternity within society. So, and it goes on to say a few other things, but that is that aspect of what we're doing as we're growing up and we're in this test lab, is we're saying it's okay to be vulnerable and tell jokes. And when I tell a joke, it makes somebody feel good. Or when I make a mistake building something, my father didn't chastise me. He just showed me how to do it the right way. That changes all of their relationship development and everything that we're doing. So if we can see the effect that it has on our social life, if we can see the effect that it has on the way that we excel or are held back, then it certainly has to be the topic that we talk about. How are we sharing faith in our homes with those that we love? What are we making them think that maybe they should hide? What are we making them think that isn't important? Or how are we living that is not in tune or accord with the faith that we're telling them is important on Sundays? And that even lends to how important do we make Sundays with Mass?
What are our devotions? Yeah, interestingly enough, doing some research for the podcast, I found a video that shared a couple that was asking a priest,
Really?
if you, could, have yourself in an altered reality where you were married and had children, how would you share your faith, or how would you grow your children in a faith-filled
And he just
home?
started to cry.
Well, he did say that, besides logistics and a few, details, he does feel like his shepherd, his flock is, his family,
Sure.
and he is trying to bring them to a faith life.
And they truly are. They truly are.
Yeah, and one of the things he said, a couple things. One of the things he said was really important was to just naturally discuss faith in your family. He said there was always conversation at the dinner table about faith or sacraments or the Sunday liturgy or the homilies, and it was quite natural to him. And he didn't realize, of course, until he was a little bit older, that not every family had these conversations at the table. But he said, sharing faith was quite natural in his family. He also said they had a definite devotion to the Eucharist, because his mom always said, if you can't love what you don't know. So they had a very special devotion to the Eucharist. They also, the family had a devotion to Mary.
Right.
And I was sharing earlier, his mother always called her Holy Mary, out of reverence. But I was joking. I thought that was because there's just so many Marys in an Italian family. You had to keep them straight. But they prayed the Rosary.
But isn't that the foundation of the Holy Family, right? So there's this image of what a family should be. And I think about, and I get letters for things like this. So I'm making the disclaimer now. The Holy Family was a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't say that not in their divinity or their holiness, but they were just a regular family. They were just raising the Son of God. But, Joseph is recognized as the father of Jesus when they call him the carpenter's son, which tells me he was very involved in teaching Jesus everything.
Right.
Mary was the mother of a son who she would have fed with her breast, who she would have raised as a toddler, changed diapers, wiped noses, all of those things. Mary would have done that.
Right.
And so, but, they lose Jesus.
I was just going to say, if anybody ever thinks, they've been a bad mother, we got to remember Mary lost Jesus for 3 days. So.
Yeah. Like one of my friends, they have a bunch of kids, and they would actually write their phone number on their arm or when they were at a mall in case they got lost, or on the back of their neck when they would go to a water park, so that if somebody found them, they could return them.
Yeah.
But this is what happened with the Holy Family, and probably so much that they didn't understand about their role.
Right.
And even Mary not understanding the timing of Jesus's miracle. Mm-hmm. The first miracle at the wedding feast.
What has this to do with me, woman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's a mother to do? But teach her son, I don't know what you have going on, but these people need something you can give, so give it.
Yeah, well, maybe it's a little failure launch syndrome for him. He's, you're 30. Come on now.
Yeah, right. It's time. You got to get over the whole losing you in the temple thing. We're sorry about it. It's been 17 years. But no, I think that when you think about a mother's love and you think about the respect that you have for those that are in your household, or the way that you wish that they acted, because some people listening right now are saying, Greg and Millie, this is not what my house looks like. I'm glad that you are all able to try to work this into homes and try to do it, but mine is a broken home, a divided home where abuse is relevant. But then you have to listen to this and say that, do you choose to change that? Do you choose to be the difference maker and to break that cycle and to not fear hurting future generations within that bloodline, but instead bringing out the sins of the past so that they don't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, if we don't heal from our wounds, we perpetuate them in our families. And there's a beautiful quote, that says we may not be responsible for the pain of our youth, but we are certainly responsible for what we do with that pain as adults. And, if we don't do that, I mean, I shared something online. I was just at an adoration last night, and I was, I lit a candle for my mom, and, I mean, things weren't always perfect in our house as they are in anyone's, but I just was so thankful, and I just pondered, I'm like, I hope I thanked you enough for everything. You think back of everything your moms do for you. And then for the things that I, might not necessarily thank you for, I forgive you. I have mercy for you, because I'm hoping that, my kids don't have to write a book about me. We all want, it's a very, challenging, difficult situation, in raising little humans. And I think we all just do the best that we can.
And we should want the best for our family out of anything. I was listening to an interview with Chris Rock the other day, and he was talking about being bullied as an African-American child in a predominantly white school. And he actually worked on a film a couple years ago where one of the kids that bullied him was working security on the film set.
Oh, wow.
And he said, it wasn't my job to shame him for a mistake that he made as an ignorant child. I just hope that he learned from that. And here's the thing. He could have been my friend. He could have been in my inner circle if he would have treated me differently. But now he's on the outside looking in. And the interviewer said, well, so do you get like mad at your mother that she didn't do more to protect you from being bullied? And he said that, my mom was a young mom. and she didn't have all the answers. I can't be mad at her for things that she didn't know.
Right.
She did the best with what she had. So as all of us grow and as all of us learn, and as you're listening to this podcast today and you're having access to this information, it is the decision point that you say, yes, faith does need to be part of our family.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be the one that brings it in the manner that is best. It doesn't mean bust out your Bible and be like, hey, kids, tonight we're going to read from Habakkuk.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Well, interestingly, the other thing, too, that he talked about was they had a devotion to the saints. So we don't always, have these examples right in our, within our homes, but we certainly have access to the communion of saints.
Right.
And these are wonderful examples. And I mean, you read the Magnificat as well. So, there's every, day there's a different saint. And if you can't relate to 1 or 2 or 10 of them,
Yeah, right.
there but for the grace of God go any of us. And the lives of the saints are so rich and give so much wisdom on, how to stumble through this life to possibly end up,
Yeah, isn't it something like every saint was a sinner?
Every saint has a sinner. Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
Oscar
so
Wilde,
we all have that ability to change. And so we don't wait for somebody else to give us the answer. So often in the church, so often in any faith-based community, it's waiting for the elders or the priests or the pastors or your religious education teachers to teach your children.
Right.
But there's nothing else in the world that is more important than this relationship of hope
Right.
and goodness.
Yeah.
And so we wait for somebody else to teach that. And so I go back to the catechism. I'm catechism crazy today. That should be my segment, Catechism Crazy with Greg Wasinski. But 1653, paragraph number 1653, parents are the principal and first educators of their children.
Amen.
In this sense, the fundamental task of marriage and family is at the service of their life. And then it goes on to say in 1657, the home is the first school of Christian life and a school of human enrichment. Here one learns endurance and the joy of work, fraternal love, generous, even repeated forgiveness, and above all, divine worship in prayer and the offering of one's life. This list, if I have to give you one piece of homework today, it is to look up the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 1657, and let that be your prayer, that is this what your home looks like?
Well, and we have to remember, so much of our work in our faith journey is interior work. And we need to let our children, our families, our spouses see that we are fervently pursuing that interior life.
Yeah.
And by setting that example, look at with the disciples. He said, Jesus, teach us how to pray. They watched him pray and wanted that relationship. So, by example, we really can share our faith just by not even speaking a word.
And I think we may have talked about it on another podcast, or I certainly talk about it in presentations, but, if your children are away from the faith, you still have the ability to bring church to them, especially if you're a Catholic Christian and you receive the Eucharist. You are bringing Christ in his body and blood that becomes part of you as a living tabernacle to be with them. If it's other Christian denominations, your ability to take the application of Scripture and to let them know about the pains of Jeremiah or the desolation of Abraham or the beauty of Peter's ignorance turning into a leader in the church.
Well, yeah,
all things that we can
also
share.
need to share our own Peter stories and our own Isaiah stories. One of the things I think that's so rich is that we do need to share answered prayers, unanswered prayers, struggles. I think we need to let our families understand that it is a process and it is surrender. There's no, here, follow these rules and you'll have a happy life and you won't have any troubles. The key is to show them and share with them the fact that, I have this rich life that I do have struggles in, but there is, all through it, though, there is joy and hope through my faith.
And Millie's Minute today kind of talks about that endurance and what it means to pray. And So I think it's a great time that we go into that. So in Millie's Minute today, we're going to share just a little bit about the perseverance of prayer, and not only how it changes the lives of the person that is prayed for, but maybe generations and generations to come after. So let's go ahead and put up our handy dandy clock for Millie's Minute, and let's go ahead and begin in 3, 2, 1.
There's a wonderful story of a woman who had a faith conversion at a very early age. When she became of age, her parents gave her in marriage to a non-Christian who often came home drunk and gave her many trials. Trials she endured with patience, gentleness, and kindness. Her strong faith endured, and her husband accepted her faith a year before he died. Her trials were not over by any means. She had a son that, although brilliant, after his studies he went on to living a life with loose women, alcohol, and addictions of all kinds, even belonging to a pagan cult. This devoted mother never gave up on him and prayed fervently. She would fast, cry, and beg God for his conversion. A local bishop she often consulted with told her, "God's time will come. Go now. It is not possible that the son of so many tears should perish." Finally, years later, at an Easter celebration, he embraced Christianity and decided to live a celibate life and devoted himself to God's service. The culmination of her prayers, her son became one of the greatest saints and doctors of the Catholic Church.
And you're just going to leave it right there. You're not going to tell anybody who this is about.
Saint Monica and Saint Augustine.
And the one who was the spiritual director?
Was, Bishop.
St. Ambrose.
St. Ambrose, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he. I think he became the spiritual director for St.
He
Augustine.
he was the spiritual director actually for his mother and for
both of them. Yeah, so I love this story, and it's become part of the Restore tour that we talk about, the power of St. Monica, because it tells us to never give up. Mm-hmm. It tells us to never give up, and that our prayers do become answered. And whether it's on the last minute of a deathbed that there's a conversion, we're just trying to get our loved ones to heaven. Mm-hmm. We're just trying to get them to a place where they can experience eternity with God. Mm-hmm. That's our role.
And a place where they can experience heaven on earth.
Yeah.
That's, the conversion and, reversion in my mind is so that we don't have to wait for heaven to live in the grace God wants us to have.
So let's give some practical examples of what we can do in our homes and ways that we can help those of you that are listening today to think about, these are things that I can integrate into my home and my family. And if you have some ideas that you would like us to post, certainly go to the Let Me Be Ministries Faith and Real Life page on Facebook and go ahead and comment in that section and let us know ways that you would advise people to grow faith in their home and things that you can do to help children become closer to God and learn the faith. And I'm going to go first. I'm going to use the one that I love. And a friend gave me the idea years ago, and that is to put up a prayer board. So by having a prayer board, whether it's on your refrigerator, whether it's, the clips with cardboard notes or something like that, it gives everybody the ability to quietly write down someone that they want to pray for at any point during the week, and then put it up on the board or write it on the dry erase board, and maybe the intention that you need after. And what you find out is that your children, they have friends who are hurting. And even if they're like, well, I don't know if I believe in this God stuff, but since my mom does, I'm going to go ahead and write this on the board.
Off chance
since my
she might
dad,
be right,
really wants me to do this, I better do it. But you're not asking them. You're not saying, all right, let's all sit around and write down.
Yeah.
You're giving them freedom. Mm-hmm. You're giving them an openness. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to do it with children. You and your spouse can do it, or you and your roommates can do it. Mm-hmm. But it's powerful that when you pull all those prayers together daily or at the end of the week, you're taking them and they're lifting them up to God, and they won't forget about it. They won't forget about it. So my first suggestion would be that prayer board that is open for everyone to use.
Well, mine's very similar. We have a prayer day. Bill, between the two of us, we have 6 children. So each day of the week is devoted to one of the kids for prayer. And so we have 6 days, and then the 7th day we pray for our relationship and marriage. So, just randomly, sometimes on a Friday, I'll text his son and say, hey, it's your prayer day. Let me know if you need anything or if you have any intentions. So I think by, again, letting, not holier than thou, letting our children know that we're praying for them, whether they may not say in this time that they appreciate it, I think it's something that will settle in with them, and at some point they will appreciate it. And I can't even take credit for this because it was from Mary Clegg. So thanks, Mary. She said they pray. They have, their 4 children. They take a day a week and pray.
That's
So
great.
so I got that idea from her. But I think prayer, and prayer specifically for each each
Well,
person.
and to just piggyback on that, one of the things that I found very powerful is the need for a family to pray together. Now, hold on. Just stay with me on this. If you're like, nah, that's too much.
Kumbaya.
Yeah, right. But if you can pray together out loud, you're special, and go do it, because there's not a lot of families that can do that. But you can always hold hands and pray together silently.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be one thing that I would suggest, that even if you just grab your child's hand at night and say, let's say our quiet prayer together,
Mm-hmm.
you're in them in that moment, and you're not telling them to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that family prayer and that ability, that if you're comfortable enough even to bless them, you are baptized priest, prophet, and king. Make the sign of the cross on their forehead and tell them that you love them and they're a child of God, and may he watch over them when they sleep. Like, that is such a powerful memory that your child will have. They won't want to run anywhere else.
Yeah, I think it's great that you bring up that point. I remember when a friend of Bill's from work, her husband was ill, and we had a small prayer service for him. And afterwards, her mother went over, made the sign of a cross on her forehead, and gave her a mother's blessing. And it was so impactful to me. And it was a beautiful moment. And unfortunately, she just passed within the past couple of months here. But I have done that. Like for my son's birthday and my son-in-law's birthday, I write up, I kind of copy some stuff offline, but I'll write up a mother's blessing and a mother-in-law's blessing. And I've even done it for my husband. I've done a wife's blessing for her husband. And I think it's very powerful. We don't have to, like you say, you don't have to write, you can download, this is the prayer, put your own spin on it or your own intention. But it's a very powerful thing to know that we have the power and ability to pray over our loved ones.
And to take that again, to fulfill that, maybe it's even a little inspirational quote or something that you share with them that brings about hope. And then you can put on your own scriptural reference or talk about how God loves them, and maybe a story of a celebrity that they like that maybe talks about faith, or, I've kind of done that before, and just say, Joel McHale, who's a comedian, was on with Bear Grylls doing their little nature thing the other day. But he talked about how important his faith was and about how he pulled back from certain things. Is he perfect? No. I mean, a lot of demands on Hollywood people, but at least he was willing to talk about it, which is way more.
Right. Well, and we just, like you say, we never know the ripple effect that one conversation or several we never know the thing. I remember years ago, I had a client whose son was incarcerated, and we would talk about a lot of things about that, about our faith. And, she was kind of asking me, how do I persevere? And so we would talk about scripture, or we'd have a story. And so she would go back home, and she only told me this, months later. She would find these inspirational quotes, and she would give them to her son. And her son, a lot of them were, scripture or faith-based, and he would post them on a chalkboard in the prison, and all the prisoners would see it.
Wow.
So again, we never know. We hope that, that God's word will not return, without the intent that it had. So it's just, we have to be bold
and someday we're going to be gone, and our family is going to have to carry on in a way that we taught them. And if we can speak of truth and goodness and kindness, and one that reminded us each and every day that God was part of our lives in the good and in the bad, it's the place that we start. So with faith in our families, we really have to look for the ways that you and I can take the reins, and whether it's baby steps or whether it's trying to help a family who's already bonded in faith to grow into a deeper level. That's our job. That's our opportunity. So I'm going to challenge you to look for ways to help your family of faith become more united, and to inspire your children the best way that you can, and to lead your spouse to heaven. That's our job. And I do want to thank, before we get ready to give our final thoughts today, I want to thank our sponsor of this podcast, and that is Thrivent Financial Advisors, Brian and Stephanie McCarty. Without their support, this podcast would not be possible. And so we are grateful for them, and they are sharing a wonderful faith with their family and their son Tyler, and just incredible people to be in business with and to have as a partner of our ministry. So we're blessed for them. And if you would like to become a podcast sponsor or to sponsor any part of the ministry, or maybe it's just that you want to get other faith-filled inspiration, you can go to the website faithandreallife.com, and everything that we offer up there is free, and we want you to be able to use it and share it with those that you love so that they can grow in their love with God. I think I got those 2 announcements in. All right, which brings us to the final point. What's your closing point, Millie?
Well, you touched on it briefly a little bit earlier, but I just want to reemphasize that it's no mistake that Jesus came into the world through a family.
Yeah. And a family who had to learn to be a family. Mm-hmm. A family who didn't start out perfect, but raised perfection. Mm-hmm. So that is our hope, and that is what we can do too. So I pray that all of you find the strength and the courage and the grace in the beauty of raising families of faith, not worrying about what others will say, but how the world will change and how you can help the lives of those that you love grow in the process. So God bless you. God keep you until we see you again on our next podcast. I pray that God will meet you everywhere that you desire him always. Take care.